Welcome back to WC Bricks for another episode of Building Mandalorian Lego. And over the last couple of weeks, I've been working on the Mandalorian Starfighter here. And I'm really happy with how the look of the build is coming on. One thing I'm not happy about is how much these wings sag. They're both falling away, and it's purely due to the weight of the wings. Now, these wings are connected in the middle using Technic. So when one wing comes up, the other one's supposed to come up with it. However, they're so heavy that that's not working. Parts inside are twisting, and it's just not how I was envisaging this build to go. Last week, somebody did ask, had I considered having the tile effect on the bottom of the wing, so when it's in its landing position, you've got the better looking side facing you. Because in the mock, on the finished, when I do the finale, this will be in the landing position. And it was something I was considering having it so that this side of the wing was the other way up. However, I decided that I might want to keep the build after I've finished Mandalore and mount this on the wall, for example. And if that was the case, I would want it in this position. It's flight mode. So for that reason, I'd want the nice smooth finish on the top. Now, one thing I am considering is rebuilding this section just here. Now, it is going to involve a fair bit of work. Hopefully I'll be able to get it done in a day. And I think it could be worthwhile. Whenever I am building, I always want to make sure that the mock is the best I can possibly do. And if it does mean I have to rip something apart, waste a week's work, then I would sooner do that and have the better end product. And what I'm considering doing is, instead of having the rotating parts inside, which are using these pieces just here, I would use something like this. Now, it means you've no longer got the moving wing function, but the wings will be attached to these the Technic beams like so, and they will slide into the fuselage. Once they're in there, I'll be having an axle that will go through, and then that will stop the wing coming out. Now, I'm hoping by having this, it's going to be a lot stronger. It's not going to flex. Good thing as well then is, if it's in landing mode, this is obviously going to be the smooth side just here. What I can then do is take the wing out, rotate it 90 degrees to put it in its landing position, and then slide it back in. I somehow try and get it so there's another Technic hole in the top of the fuselage. So again, pop the axle in and it stops the wing coming out. And the good thing is I can just rotate the wings around. So this wing will be on that side and the other one will be on this side. And that way I can then have the smooth, good looking finish on both landing and in flight mode. So it's just something I'm considering. What I'm going to do, I'm going to start off by prototyping a new fuselage section here. I won't be destroying this one to start with. And what I'll do, once I know it's worked, I'll just transfer the bricks from one build onto the other. So fingers crossed, it's not going to take a massive amount of time. With the wings, obviously, I'm going to have to rebuild the connection joint inside. So just underneath these slopes here, I am going to need to do it so that they've got a nice strong structure in there, and the Technic beams come out with the tiles on the top, which will then slide in there. I do think this is possibly well worthwhile spending the time to make this look as best I can. So without further ado, let's get some bricks out, get some tiles out, and let's get started. And here is the start of the new fuselage, and I've put this Technic beam here, and it's compressing everything together so it won't pop apart once the wings are in there. So regardless of the weight of the wings, it should work fine. I will find a smaller beam that's more in keeping with the size. This is obviously just the first one I came to. But the other good thing as well is it's enabling me to have studs on both the top and bottom. So it's going to make building this that little bit easier. But at least now that I know that I've got this section here, and this is about the right size for the centre of the fuselage, I'm going to carry on building it out. And then once I know that it is definitely going to work, then I will bring the curved pieces over from the main build onto this. The only thing I haven't done yet is put a plate across here, which has got a Technic hole in there. So I need one there, and it's got to be on both this level and this grey plate here. And then that way the pins can slide in from the top to keep the wings in place once it's in the other position. And the work continues, and look at the state of my desk here. It's been completely destroyed. This is the original inside of the fuselage, and as you can see, when you rotate one wing, the opposite side was rotating with it. However, due to the weights of the wings, things inside this were basically slipping and it was not working properly. So I definitely think this is the right way forward for the mock, looking a lot better when it is in a display mode basically. Now with this as well, I've been able to compact it a lot more, which has meant I've got this as a perfect circle. There's no longer the necessity to have a 1x2 45-degree slope between the two. With this old system here, due to the clips on these rotating parts here, there was 3 studs wide on that. It meant I had to go to an odd number of studs in width on that. So now I'm doing it this way, I can get it all even numbered and it's going to look a lot better. So I'm a lot happy with that. And with these wings, so if you have it in flight mode, or you can slide it out and then you can just pop it back in for the landing mode. And what will happen, you just slide a pin through the fuselage this way to keep them in place when it's in flight mode. And when it's in landing mode, you put the axle through the top there. But anyway, let's carry on building this fuselage up, and I'll check back in once I made some more progress. And the build is starting to come together nicely now. Not much further to go until we're back to where it was previously. Obviously, still got to attach the cockpit on the front. And again, the cockpit will not be rotating now. Originally, I was going to be using this piece here on the top, this Technic plate with the holes in. This was going to be sliding into here. So when it goes in this way, Technic pin goes through there to keep it in place. And then when I was doing it this way, again, Technic pin was going to go through there. However, it's not lining up perfectly. It is just a fraction out. So you can't actually get the axle in there. And it doesn't even look like it's half a plate out. So what I'm having to do now is slightly amend the build on the top here. So the way I'm getting around the problem now is there is a ledge just here and here, and then I'm going to be popping this part in there. Now this is meaning that it's exactly the same as the wing mounts themselves. So all I need to do now is just build on top of this. That'll keep that part all in place. And then when I put the wing piece in through the with the side bit here, it'll now line up perfectly and I'll be able to get the axle all the way in. So there was a way of getting around the problem, but yeah, it was quite frustrating because I built it all up. I thought I tested and it worked okay, and it turned out it didn't, so I had to strip it back. But now I know it definitely works and I can carry on building the rest of the fuselage. And that is the rear of the fuselage, pretty much back to how we had it before, complete wise. Now this is a section here which pops off, which I'll be able to put the Technic pins in there, and this is at the moment it's just suspended on a couple of trans clear bricks, but it's so much nicer having it this way. I think it's a lot tidier around the wing mounts, so I do think it was the right decision to spend the past day getting this all changed over to the new look. Now I've done that, I'm going to concentrate on building forward here, including the cockpit. And work has begun on the front of the fuselage, and it's all fixed in place. It's no longer going to be rotating as it did on the previous model, and I think it's a much better idea because it enables me to get more detail in here. Now, although there's only 1 seat in the cockpit area, I think it's supposed to be 3 in there at least. Due to the size restraints on here, I'm unable to do so. This isn't minifig scale, so I think you would have a seat point in that way, then you've got a couple at the front, and then a doorway that leads to the back section here, which is where all the troops will be ready to be deployed from the craft. But either way, still going to make the cockpit look as good as possible with the size I'm using. These side bits here, they were on the original build, so I've just moved those over. And what I'm going to do now is put some slopes on the edge to get the shape in there and then start working my way forward. And I will be using plates and tiles at an angle on the front part. So let's carry on building. I'll check in once I've made a little bit more progress. And there it is, the front sections all attached to the vehicle. I'm really happy with the look of this, how it's coming on. And what I'm going to do now is start working on the slopes that are going to be going around the cockpit side. I have ordered a windscreen piece for this. It's 6 studs wide, 7 long, and 1 brick and 1 plate high. However, I don't know what I've done with it, so I need to try and find that out. But I am going to need to order a lot of pieces in here. Still need to get in loads of pieces that's going to be going around this section just here, but I'll work the order out and I'm going to place that order this evening when I order the barrel door set. And there is the cockpit glass all in place, and I'm not liking the look of it. I don't think it's got the right angle, and I think there's way too much glass showing basically, so I'm going to be scrapping that idea, and I'm going to have a look online and see what other options there are available. There is one part that I know that I've seen in the past, but whether or not they do it whether it's still available or not, I'm not sure. And there's a tile that I think might work quite nicely on the roof section, so I'm going to hold fire on working any more on the cockpit for the time being. But what I need to do now is just calculate all of the tiles I need to get all of the wings finished, the fuselage finished, and then go online and get the order all ready for this evening. When I place that order, need to order some more of these slopes that go along here as well, just to fill that gap in there. And here we have it, the wings attached to the fuselage, and it's so strong now. There's very little, if any, drooping of the wings. There's plenty of room under here, and the fuselage is taking all of the weight, so that the structural side of that is, I've achieved what I wanted to achieve basically. Now it would have been nice to have had these rotating, don't get me wrong, it would have been absolutely brilliant. However, the most important thing for me was to have this looking as best it could when it's in both the flight mode, which is in the moment, and the landing mode. And the only way that I could achieve that was by having the wings removable. And it's so simple to do. There would be Technic pins in here, which I haven't actually put in for the time being. Just swap these wings over, and now just slide them into the cockpit like so. And here is the Starship in the landing position, and I couldn't be happier with how the majority of this is looking. I say the majority, as mentioned before, that cockpit needs to be changed out. There is a couple of little gaps here. Need to work out how I'm going to be filling those gaps in. But again, I don't think it's going to be too hard to do so. The engines down here, I think they might be just a little bit too big. So I'm going to pull those apart and then just make them just a couple of studs smaller. And also need to work out exactly how I'm going to put the engine mounts on there. I did show you a prototype last week, so I'm going to order all the pieces in white, so I can do that when ordering all the other wedge plates and tiles on the build. Now, a lot of time this week has been spent rebuilding that back section, and it's time that I think was well spent. It's improved the look of this, in my opinion, so much, having the wings facing forward like this on the mock, because this is how it's going to be displayed on top of the building. So yeah, definitely the right decision, in my opinion, making it so that I can just remove the wings, swap them over and put them in either flight mode or land mode, rather than have a function which you're never really going to be using. The only time you're using it is to get it either up or down. So yeah, definitely the right move forward, I think. A couple of bits I need to work on this week are the underside of the fuselage here, that hasn't been touched yet, and also need to put some details in along here, some greebling. But all in all, this build, I shouldn't have too much more to do on this Starship. But next week, I'm going to be turning my attention back to the actual Mandalore mock over here. I want to try and get a lot more of this done. Somebody did ask me this week how much longer I was anticipating Mandalore taking. And ideally, it would be nice to get it done in the next 5 or 6 weeks. Whether or not that's possible or not, I'm not sure. A lot of it's going to depend on whether or not I can find the bricks out and source the bricks to do it. I don't want to rush the build. I want to make sure it looks as good as possible, as I've been doing with this Starship here. Anyway, that's all we've got time for. I hope you've enjoyed the update. If you have, please remember to give us a big thumbs up. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content on the channel. And if you know anybody else you think would be interested in building Gotham or building Mandalore, if you could share the channel with them, it would be much appreciated. Anyway, thanks for popping by, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.